Yeah, but
My
yeah,
neighbor,
Susan knows Lisa.
yeah, my
She
neighbor
lived.
was 55 and died from sepsis just 2 weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago.
That is so scary. We heard of someone else dying of
Yeah,
sepsis. I'm like,
yeah,
all right.
My
Quick
dad
as a
almost
patient, but really tough on the family.
yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. It was just her sister and her niece, and both parents had passed, and the sister is older than her, and she's going through the like anger phase. So it's very sad.
Oh,
I know how to start a meeting, cheerful, huh?
yeah. Well, at least you're over COVID.
I know, I'm finally over it, except my voice is not over it. It'll be 6 weeks today. It was the most
Really? Wow.
annoying. Oh yeah, it was crazy. And of course it wasn't the new one like everyone was getting. I had to be different. It was 3 days before Christmas, and went out CVS in Wilmington to get a booster shot, and it was a disaster. Like the store was really dirty. No one was wearing masks. It was total chaos. They bring us, I go back in the section to get the shot. And long story short, they had put a couple who were COVID positive were sitting right next to me. And I thought,
Wow.
and I had a mask on, and I said to this other girl, and the girl shaking her head, who was waiting for the booster shot, and she goes, if we don't get it tonight, I'm like, honest to God. And 3 days later, I wake up, I'm like, so it was so
Wow.
close. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I went to the new CVS in North Reading. It was cleaner.
that's what I should have. Usually, I think it's just someone said they're really short staffed, and it was just right before Christmas. But
Yeah.
Amy, how did the opening of the center go today?
well, I was telling it went well today,
Oh, she had a great
except
day.
it's been that's why my voice is also gone. At 8:45, someone took a fall in the great room, falling flat. Sandy was there, falling flat on her face and breaking her nose.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just one of those fluke things. And one of the receptionists had called, so she called me. This was her fifth day, and she said someone had fell, and I looked, and it was pretty serious, and Elise wasn't there today. So I said we did well, but it was a lot of blood.
She
Not that I want to show them.
you called 911?
Called 911. Firefighters came within like 2 or 3 minutes. They were so good. And then we had also had some challenges because DPW, because it was closed on Friday, the parking lot was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, I was ready to go home and get some sand. And but they came, everything worked out. And then we had a senior today. If anyone in Reading got, or you guys probably got the reverse 911 call, and he was one of ours. And Gary was talking to the daughter. He has dementia. So
He walked off
to Wakefield, where he used to live. So
Wow.
sad. So sad. So his daughter, I guess, was talking to Gary today, and for this afternoon when we were getting ready to leave. And it's a hard conversation to have. I think the
Sure.
daughter is ready, but he's remarried, and she is kind of in denial about it. So aren't you glad you asked, John? It was a really great. We're afraid to go back tomorrow. We're like, what's going to happen? I said, it's all going to be good. And, for the most part, it was great seeing everyone. So good to be back, and it just felt normal, It was good. But Kevin cannot make the meeting tonight.
Okay.
So
I
I
think
ask that you guys bear with me.
I think we have a quorum if Jackie is willing to step in as into a member slot for the evening or serve the purpose. Jackie, are you with us for this?
Yep, I am.
Oh,
We have a quorum. Don't we have a quorum without Jackie?
we have only 5. 1, 2, 3.
I count 6.
4, 5. Oh, we do. We have 6. I take it
Not
back.
that I have,
Jack.
not that I have any opposition to Jackie participating, but I'm thinking I see 6 people here.
Yep, no,
No
you're
worries.
right. I
My video-
wasn't counting myself, sorry.
That's right. And my video's off because I'm eating dinner, so,
Nice.
but I'm here.
All right, let me call the meeting to order at 6:35. And I'll start by calling the attendants. Jackie,
Here.
Barb Carney, not here. Joan Coco,
Yeah,
Jolyn Eck, not here. Karen Fotino, not here. Sally Hoyt, not here. John Parsons,
Here,
Karen Panett. Karen, you're muted, Karen.
Karen,
I am here.
Great, thank you. Sandy Schaefer,
Here.
Marilyn Shapley, here. Debbie Small, not here. And Nancy Zimlack.
Here.
Thank you. First order of business tonight, jumping back and forth between screens. Let's see, this one would be, where are we? Topics, call to order, acceptance of minutes from December and January. So we'll do them one by one. Acceptance, any issues with the minutes from December?
no,
No.
No.
I actually found some typos, which I know is picky, but I read them. It shows I read the notes. The 12-13 ones, the Jean Delios's name is spelled wrong.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea how to spell it.
There's no U in it. It's Delios, and that's in several places if you do a search on it.
Yeah.
In the outreach mailing paragraph, there's punctuation and capitalization is missing. Both are missing in a few spots.
Okay, I'll check it.
Yeah, recalc paragraph, there's a typo. It should be benefits. I think it says BENEFS. So it's just that. And that's what jumped out to me. But the content, the intent of it, I didn't have any issue with it. It's the needs to go through spell checker.
Okay.
you don't have to worry about your job, Nancy. Nobody wants it.
Oh, come on. There's got to be a waiting line for it.
You do great, Nancy.
No, the minutes were great in content. It just the little picky stuff needs to go through spell checker.
No.
That's all.
That's fine.
All right. Do we have, we usually just approve the minutes. We don't go through a formal vote, I believe. Do we need to go through a vote on this? We
I
don't have Mark.
believe we do.
We
I
do,
thought we had to
okay.
go for the road on everything.
All right, we
Yeah.
need a motion then. Motion to accept the minutes.
so
I-
moved.
Okay,
Sec-
I second it.
All right, thank you. Oh, this is another point just in general. I don't know if we're supposed to record who makes motions and seconds, and I always used to throw it in, but
You
no
should
one
do
ever
it.
said it. We should?
I said, you used to do it.
I used to do it, but nobody told me I had to. I always just kind of wondered.
Yeah.
I think it's usually done, but I don't think it's a big deal either.
Yeah,
I do have a question. Are we being recorded? I see RCTV on the screen.
looks that
Ye-
way.
I
Yeah.
just realized that too. We might be, yes.
We're probably being broadcast as well, is my guess.
Oh,
All right, so we've got a motion. We had a second. Let me call the roll again. Jackie, this is just, I'm sorry, my mind, I've been juggling like 800 things in the last 48 hours. My brain is fried. Do I just need to call the members or do I need to call everyone on the roll?
Just the
think-
members,
I think
I
just
think
the
it-
members.
Just the members.
just the
Okay.
full-time members.
All right, so, Barb is not here. So Joan Coco?
yes. Yeah, yes, whatever.
Yep. John Parsons,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
Yes.
Sandy Schaefer,
Here.
Marilyn Shapley, yes, and Nancy Zimlack.
Yes.
Okay, so the
And
meeting.
Karen Fotino.
Ah, you're here, yay, Karen.
Yeah.
Faustino. Okay,
Hi, Karen.
welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So we can go on to the minutes from the January meeting. We need a motion. Or any issues with that?
No,
I had one. Maryland only has one N in it. You've got me in there is with Maryland with two N's in several places, but not all of them.
Well, maybe you'd consider changing it to 2 N's. I'll fix it.
Even so, it's 50-50, so one way or the other. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept them?
so yeah, I make a
Sec-
motion. to accept.
Second?
Second,
Thank you. Call the roll again. Joan Coco?
Yes,
Karen
Yes.
Fontino?
Yes.
John Parsons?
yes.
Karen Pinette?
Yes.
Sandy Schaefer? Sandy?
Andy.
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. And Nancy Zimlack.
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. Our next item here is new business, the Elder and Human Services update. Amy, are you providing that this evening?
I am, yes. So I have a couple things from us and Kevin. So the first one, Kevin wanted me to pass along that Jean and Kevin and I will be meeting with the recalc consultant in the next week or so. And we'll be discussing the flyer and strategize the best way for it to be part of the overall public outreach in conjunction with the recalc. And the drive-by is Valentine's Day drive-by on February 15th from 1 to 2. So anyone who hasn't signed up, if you want to sign up, Kelly did a really great job putting the bags together, and I think it should be really fun. So we thank you guys again for providing the funds. And the good news is that Fidel, Kevin has been in touch with them. He had already stopped by to the senior center when Kelly was there. I guess he was expecting Kevin Kabuzzi, who is the maintenance, I don't know the exact title, but he was taking him to see the center and he met Kelly. So Kelly invited him. He's supposed to be part of the drive-by. I don't know how many people will get to really meet him because, well, if it's outside with masks on, don't know, how personable that will be. But we're also going to set something up at the Pleasant Street Center for a chance for the seniors to meet him. He seems great, and we're thinking doing maybe like coffee or something, and just giving a chance for them, for everyone to meet him and to get to know him. So,
Amy,
yeah.
do you need help on that drive-by?
I had asked, thank you, Karen. I think we're good, and I'm going to double check with Kelly. I think since we're hoping the weather is going to be good, we have all of our staff from that time is going to be outside doing that. But thank you, Karen. So
If you do, just give me a call.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much.
I
What
plan
was
on
the
being there
date?
as usual.
Thank you, John.
What was the date of the drive-by again?
It is the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
From 1 to 2.
Okay.
And then we are going to be setting the tents up in March, which we're actually late March to early April for the tents. So we're going to try to get creative with that. And then we were thinking of, when I had asked, it seems so long ago now, but the Tin Bucket event, we think we're going to hopefully, fingers crossed, reschedule it in late March. And we're going to be doing it around doing a creative paint that says lucky or luck. Something, because I think everyone could use that. And looking to do that event either March 23rd or 30th. since today was our first day back, we had everyone together. We're still trying to go over the plans, but today was a little hectic. But I'll let you guys know once we have a solid plan. So, oh, and another thing is we also got my senior center training, them to come in last week. It was great. They had, it was just all of our staff came in on Monday and was there from 10 to 3. So got to go over everything. And Marilyn, we went over how to do the statistics and reports. And I started to run it today. And that I think you were on when I was mentioning the chaos today. So
Yeah.
I can send those to you. But we're also training. We have a new receptionist. Her name is Eileen Mack, and she's wonderful. So she is started last Monday, the training, and today was her, I think, 5th day. So that's, I think, it from us.
Oh, lots of good news in there. That's great.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of progress. When you mentioned the flyer that several of you are meeting, you mean the flyer that's in this week's packet, this month's packet?
I think so. That was
Okay.
what Kevin had mentioned. I believe so, yes.
Great. I'm thinking if it's possible, since Nancy and I drafted that, it might facilitate matters if we could join you when you talk about it, because we could quickly change things or, tell you if we had questions and whatever. So I don't know when you're going to be meeting, but if it's feasible, it might facilitate things.
Okay, I can pass that info along to Kevin, because
Okay.
I think it sounds like the first initial. I don't even know if I'm going to be part of it, but it sounds like him and Jean are going to be having just like a preliminary meeting. But I can definitely let him know.
Okay.
to include
Anything
in
we
that.
can do to get outreach moving again.
Okay,
And since we're the ones that wrote it, and we've got the drafts that we can quickly edit it, and all happy to
Okay.
help. We're there in a
Great.
helpful mode.
nice,
How can we facilitate?
great, thank you.
All right. Any questions about the report? No? Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
I think our other topic tonight, we have 2 more, the recalc meeting discussion. We need to provide any feedback if anyone has any to that list that we had not had an opportunity to review before the joint recalc meeting. But Kevin did send us the minutes during the meeting, and I don't know if people had a chance to look at the minutes that Kevin shared from the recalc meeting, the December, I think it was, I'm not sure which month's meeting it was. Might have been the January 12th meeting of recalc, had the list that we were asked to look at when we joined.
I didn't see it, Marilyn.
Oh, it's there,
Uh,
because I went
it's
to it
there?
last night. Yeah,
Oh,
I went to
okay.
it and printed it last night.
Oh,
There
okay.
there are actually 3 sets of minutes he sent, and he sent it during the meeting.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think it's the 3rd set of minutes that had the list in it. I had a bunch of things. I always have a bunch of things. Where would we be without me saying a bunch of things? What's the best way of communicating it? I guess I asked John and how we should do that. I mean, it's not, most of it's not earth shattering, but from what I was reading in the notes is you want to aim high and then we can pare down the list if we need to. But I was thinking of things like even, a room that's set up like a movie theater. I know we've shown movies at the Pleasant Street Center in the past, but all we've got are those little folding chair things. And, a comfortable place to watch movies could be a nice place if the facility could accommodate it. A crafts for sale place in Linfield, they have a room designated for people who want to sell gently used items around. It's usually things like jewelry or pocketbooks or crafts that they've made themselves. Some of them are very skilled knitters, for example, and had some great stuff. Their Council on is it the Council on Aging, or do they have a friend? No, they're friends of the Friends of the Senior Center in Linfield, they have a Friends. They actually run it there, but they raise all their money for all the things, and they've done major renovations with this money. They raise serious money by selling this kind of stuff in this little room, and it's a real hit, especially around the holidays. So while we don't currently have a Friends of the Senior Center, one day we might, and if not, maybe there's some other capacity in which we could do this and be allowed to raise funds. So again, we're talking several years out probably for this to come to fruition. So I would put it on the list of wish list. I also, there's
Stoneham also has
Stoneham.
a store like that. Yeah.
Okay. They
Very
raise major money. I mean, you look at the stuff and you might say, that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to get rid of. Who's going to pay money for it? But people pay money for it, especially I think the craft things. They're really valuable. They're treasures for people who have those skills. It's great. And it's also really good for the elder community because it gives them a place where, you know, they can sell things they make. So anyway, it's on my wish list. Also, the future very much involves greatly increased use of virtual reality equipment. It can be used for entertainment. The kids probably all know about it already, but it's becoming more and more of a technology that is being explored for benefits it has for seniors. It can be a great way to engage someone who hasn't got the ability to be directly with, for example, family members. Or family members go on a trip and the person's too frail to go with them, but they can, through virtual reality, in essence, be there, seeing it in real time with them through that equipment. A colleague of Mark's, Tom Model, got in touch with me thanks to Mark introducing us, and he was instrumental in creating the, is it Reading Friends? Is that the name of the other group that's in Reading? John, you know about them. Is it Reading Friends or Friends?
Neighbors,
It's
Reading
Neighbors.
Neighbor.
I think it's
Reading
called.
Neighbors.
Neighbors Network, RNN.
Thank you. He was one of the instrumental people in creating it. He's no longer in that role, but he's looking for an opportunity to volunteer a small amount of time if we have projects that strike his fancy and he thinks he can be helpful. And so I countered back and said, gee, you know, I know there's a lot of research going on about virtual reality, and maybe it's something we should be planning for the equipment and or space for tools like that. And I sent him, and I also sent Nancy, who is greatly interested in technology, links to a website I found. There are about a zillion websites on this out there, but it's definitely, you know, it's, who knew we'd go from VCRs to DVRs and all the rest. It's that kind of thing that, you know, overnight, suddenly it's going to be something that's everywhere. So I threw that in there, and I throw having space and equipment be part of the future plan for virtual reality technology in my wish list. I think it's, I asked Tom perhaps if he can find the information. He didn't know that he was an expert himself, but he has friends who do know a lot about it, and he promised to get in touch with them. And if he can pull together information from that readily, he will be willing to come and share it with the council. It might even be something we could consider as a new item to offer under the medical subsidies that we have, you know, just like we have Lifeline, we might subsidize virtual reality equipment for seniors who are isolated. We might make it equipment that's available in the senior center. We might subsidize it for people, you know, any number of things that may be. That's, I just wanted to put it on the wish list because it's something that 5 years and that from now could be, you know, one's in every household sort of thing. Who knows? So I'll go back to my question, and I don't know if other people had a chance to look at those minutes. I encourage you to if you haven't, but we should get feedback to recalc on it since it's what they wanted us to speak about at the last meeting. Karen, is that a raised hand?
Yeah, I just had a question. I was wondering, does the town have a grant writer or anybody in that post that, because you just have these awesome ideas, and even if we're not able to fund them, there are lots of grants out there that we could tap into. It'd be great if it was somebody else's job and they could do it. But if not, I mean, that's something that we could absolutely look into for those things on our wish list. Like, I love that idea, and there are so many other really great ways that we can, bring in different technologies, and there's a lot of money out there.
There's a tremendous amount of money out there.
Mhm.
It
Oh,
seems
no,
like each
Freddie.
committee writes their own grants,
Yeah,
as far as I know. Is that true, Mark? Yeah,
Pretty
that's what I
much,
thought.
yeah. There's not a central person just to do grants
Yeah,
everywhere.
I didn't think so. Kim
Yeah,
and if
Hardenschlager,
there's,
or Kelly, who's in the, Kathy Kelly, are both good at that.
Okay.
They would
And I
maybe help people
actually-
if they needed it.
sorry, oh, yeah, Kathy Kelly I've worked with. I actually have a grants background too, so I know if anything has to do with us, I'm keeping a running list. So that's definitely something down the road. Yeah, because the money is out there and there's so many new grants. I have an Excel spreadsheet just of new ones that have popped up since COVID, like family foundations, and so there's a lot of them.
Kim Hardenschlager no longer works for the town, but she's an exceptionally nice person, and I bet she would help if people asked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can help with that too. I've written some grants in the past also.
Oh, okay, well,
great.
that's great to know. We've got
Yeah,
people with
thanks, Karen.
those
That is good
capabilities.
to know.
I'm a complete nerd, so any nerdy stuff from
I love it. We love nerds.
I struggle with knowing how we can, and I'm not saying I don't want to do it, I definitely want to do it. I've struggled with how structurally and organizationally the council can set itself up so that we can act on some of these things. I think what we need is a subcommittee that might meet weekly to brainstorm and start moving on some of these things. And I don't know if people are up to volunteering for work on a subcommittee that would be that involved. I don't know what the logical step, right? It hasn't happened in my experience with the Council on Aging, and I think it should, because I think there's a lot of stuff that it's just a question of people power to someone sit down and say, it's a great idea, let's start moving it forward. I don't know what the rest of you think about it. Should we form some kind of an action subcommittee? There are loads of things like this.
Would it be for grants or?
It could be any number of things. Grants is a really good target area, I think, for it. Nancy and I had been brainstorming just over the last couple of days through text messages. We both went off on a wonderful trip down. Wouldn't it be wonderful? We were thinking, for example, even if, there's been talk many times about renting the space over by Market Basket as a temporary thing. There probably is grant money, I would think, through the ARPA funds. We could certainly make the case that the senior center does not readily make itself accessible to social distancing. And we've got plans in the works for long term, but short term. What if we rented the space and simply moved everything over there, just like the library did? It would require writing a grant. It would get a space. It could be handicapped accessible. It could be, spaced out enough that it should be safer than the current situation, or support more people safely than the current situation can. But I think a grant would be the first step on something like that if the council were to join an interest in doing something like that. There's money available through the AARP. Thank you.
ARPA.
Yeah, they have money for smaller grants, but they have annual ones on their website saying, we've got money, folks, come and get it, but we need to write grant proposals for these things. We might write a grant to have a decent full kitchen put in at that site. We could start serving meals again. I mean, they're not, outlandish ideas. They're short term. They are certainly justified by current circumstances. I think what we need to do is have a group that can be invested enough and available enough to meet at least weekly to get these short term things going, which is not to undermine or compete what's going on with recalc at all, but recalc is mostly focused on a longer term kind of study and proposals, but we still have a lot of elderly people who could use more support in the next 3 to 5 years or however long it might take. So Nancy, yes.
So a question I have about that is, how do we know that the projects that the group is selecting are the ones that are needed by the seniors in the community? So that would be one question. It seems like there should be a step before that. If we're just servicing the 1,000 or so people that currently use the center, that probably would be a fairly easy task. But if we're trying to ask the question of a larger community, that's a bigger effort. Maybe that's the recalc end of it, and we just do it for those people that are currently using the center. But I would just, so that's my question. How do we know that what we choose is what's needed? I had another question too, and I'll think of it in a minute, but that's just, I'll go with that one.
Mark,
I don't know the answer, so.
Yeah. Mark, I was going to say, you're our wise person who knows how these things work in the town. What would you advise?
I got to connect with Karen on the nerd thing, but so a couple of thoughts here. One is, I think, so recalc in terms of facilities certainly is more medium term and long term in terms of what's going on. That said, the most important thing to what you're saying, Nancy, is we need to identify the needs, make sure that we kind of understand what they are, because based on that, then everything can start to move forward. And, you know, before we start ending up duplicating efforts, I think it would be great to kind of lay out, okay, here are the needs. Some of them are now, some of them are now and later. And if we're going to reach this broader community, you know, that's kind of the really big thing here. How are we going to address it? So some of it is programs, some of it is space, some of it don't know what it is yet. Right. But I think when we talk more facilities, especially medium term, long term, I think that's what recalc hopefully is going to come back to the community with, because whenever we need town money and taxpayer money, so town money's got to go through town meeting. So we need to be really careful is not the right word. We want to be organized. That's what we want to be. And approaching this and saying, hey, these are the needs. Here's, you know, we're laying them out. Now we're going to look at the options and we're going to come back to a town meeting with what we think is the best proposal. And it's a group of community members that are all talking about it, a lot of them town meeting members, to be able to come back and say, here's what we need to do. I think at the same time, you've got some great potential sources of funds. So in the near term, the state ARPA funds in particular aren't really completely spoken for yet. So I think that's great. We should think about what those might be. They might even be facilities. They could be, you know, bigger. So that would be great to see, you know, how do we get organized to talk about it? And I want to be careful we don't kind of have lots of people kind of shooting at the same thing. It'd be much better to just get very organized and say, okay, here's the short-term needs, here are the medium-term needs, here are the long-term needs. Recalc, go out, you're doing the survey, add community input to what these discussions have already been, and then start turning that into a proposal. And I think that's probably the best use of recalc. My opinion, John, I'd be interested in yours as well, kind of how you're thinking on that. And then programs, near-term needs, things like that. I think the council should have lots of input on that. And Marilyn, if I could, you and I were chatting. So I'm also on the Commission of Trusts. I'm one of the trust commissioners. And so we were looking at what funds are available. And the Dorothy Burbank Trust, which is under the control of the Council on Aging, has about a $250,000 expendable balance. And there are other about 50 grand of other expendable balances. And one of the things that happened at the trust commissioners meeting was a discussion of why are the balances growing? And the answer is, usually we do stuff, but COVID hit, so we couldn't do as many things, so the balances are growing. That said, there's $250,000 there. So, you know, I know often it is used for events and activities, kind of, shorter term activity things. Maybe there's a desire to use some of it for something bigger, a bigger project, a bigger activity. I think if it's a facilities thing, like, hey, let's put a bathroom into the first floor of this building. So first of all, I don't think that's a $250K thing. But second of all, I think that's a bigger kind of activity that the town should be kind of figuring out how to do. So I don't know, Nancy, if that helped a little bit with kind of the discussion, but I think that there are like buckets of things that we ought to be thinking about. Marilyn, you were going through some ideas on, what should we be talking about. If others have some thoughts on that list also that can expand what we already have, that's great. There's a recalc meeting. I think it's, John, is it Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday? I forget which, it's one or the other. But whatever night it is, then we're going to talk about what we want to say to the consultant in terms of here's what you should share with the community. So if we just go to the community and say, tell us what you want, we'll do better if we structure it and say, here are some ideas. What do you think of these ideas? And if there are some ideas missing, let us know what those are. I think that might be more productive. So that's what I was hoping to do with recalc at our next meeting after getting more input from the council.
Okay, and is that when you say next Tuesday, Wednesday, do you mean tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean,
like by
Don, if you
tomorrow.
know, sorry, all these days end with DAY.
I know.
9th is recalc, Wednesday night this week.
Okay. So what we should do is email you directly with ideas, and it's thinking trying to get our ideas all coordinated in that time and get it to you is a challenge. Nancy, yes. What?
One of my concerns with that is if we're all independently emailing our ideas, some of the ideas are going to be small, some of the ideas are going to be big. Some of the ideas might not really merit attention by recalc. So it kind of goes back. I hear what you say, Mark, and I agree with everything you said, but and I think maybe, Marilyn, it's the third item on your agenda, elder outreach planning.
Yeah.
Maybe that is something that would generate what the need is out there, because we don't know what the need is. So how do you go find out what the need is?
Thinking short term, I think that we do know about some needs. We know we used to be able to serve meals and people came and ate them and people enjoyed the community that went with it in spite of the quality of the food when it wasn't great. And now this doesn't exist. We've got nothing. So just to get us back to being whole being where we were before the pandemic, something short term that would allow us to set a place up where we could start serving meals again would just be repair work that I don't think we need to reestablish the need because it was there for decades.
Okay, so
That's one.
I agree with that, as opposed to putting a kitchen in somewhere, which I think is.
But you need a kitchen to serve meals. Our current facility is not adequate to do more than warming, and our current facility is not.
No, I know that, but one of Kevin's things was he was looking at collaborating with like Bunratty's or something, and actually once a month doing something at the center. I think that's a really good idea, and I like your approach, Marilyn, that it's maybe we can look at those things we can't do anymore.
Right.
And if they were well attended, to try to put those back in place. So as
a special event, Nancy, I can almost guarantee you that would sell out immediately because all the special events that involve good food being delivered always sold out immediately and had waiting lists.
No, and that's what I said, Marilyn. I agree with you.
Yeah, but in addition, there's the daily people who don't have a hot lunch available to them, and they used to come to the senior center for it.
Marilyn, could I point out? I've had my hand up. So is Karen, and so is Mark.
I'm sorry,
if you look up on the screens, you'll see we all have.
No, I don't see it.
Up in the
Yeah,
left-hand
hands are
corner.
up.
Oh, you know
Like
what?
a
I don't have
pop-up.
my participant screen up. Now I do. Sorry, I didn't have my participant screen open. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
If I
John,
could-
yes, your hand
If I
is
could
up.
just, if I could just, in response to what Mark was talking about, all the funds we have.
Yeah,
Some of those are very, very restricted as to what they can be spent on.
yeah.
Particularly, I think that the big one, it's only for certain medical things. So we'd have to look into what we could spend for what very carefully before we tried to get into it, unless the trust was rewritten.
And Karen, your hand's up.
Yeah, so one of the things, so we need data to go
Mm.
forward with. So one of the things that I hear is that there's a space issue. I'm at a disadvantage because I've never actually gone to the senior center. But I think it would be really helpful to provide data that says, we had this event, we had this many slots, and these are how many people were on the waiting list. Like that is solid data. Like that tells us that if we had a space that was X amount larger, then we would have enough for that. Same thing for, these food events, how many people come, how many are you turning away? Like that's great data to show, to provide the evidence that you need to increase your size of your facility.
Yeah, we have all that. Hi Karen, we have all that in my senior center database, and I'm going to be doing reports. I was just saying we did a training for that, but we do keep track, and we encourage everyone to do the sign-ins because that is key information. So you're 100% right.
Amy, do we have it going back to the pre-pandemic ages?
I think we do. I think
Okay.
Jane was pretty good about keeping all that. And I
I
think
know
there's
she
a
always
way.
used to report to us on it. It was a challenge for her to keep the waiting list information because they frankly were just swamped with work, and to be keeping track
Yeah,
of the waiting list was always a challenge, but they definitely knew how many people got served at those events. And they definitely
yeah.
were reporting that they sold out in 24 or 48 hours and that there was a
Oh
waiting
yeah,
list.
we have all that information, and I
All
need to
right.
be better about getting it to you. And
That would
I
be
learned it
great.
last week. Yeah, and I'm kind of like teaching myself. There's almost too much information, so now I have to kind of go back and get used to doing that on a regular basis. But I'll get that to you, and we keep. But for waiting lists, I think that we just
It's hard.
there's not a way to input it, I don't think, but
Yeah.
we can always, I'm big on having paper as backup. And I know Kevin's making me be better about that because he's not always a paper guy. Either keep the data in or have the notes, in the somewhere online. But I can get all that. We are keeping track of it though.
But in terms of how to try to fast track it, I mean, if our goal were in 6 months to be able to turn anything around that's gotten stopped by the pandemic, short term, what steps would we have to take? I mean, the grant money, those things all have deadlines. They're going to come and they're going to go. And as the pandemic starts to hopefully wind down, these opportunities are going to be running out rather than increasing. I just hate for us to miss the opportunity when there are things that it's just evident that we aren't what we used to be, aside from the whole question of whether we're expanding and any of the rest of it, but things like being able to offer a hot meal every day of the week, humble as it may have been. People came, and that's a standard thing that's available in senior centers everywhere, and people come. I don't think there's a lot of question on that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, I know the quality of food affects it. They see the menu, and if it's something nobody likes, you're not going to see very many people there that day. It's true. They'll find something better.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of complaints about the food. I do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But which is why I was thinking somewhere with a kitchen where maybe we could upgrade while we're at this. Yes, Mark.
So a couple of things if I could. One, back to Nancy, to your point, I think it would be great if we, the council, could organize our thoughts, not send one-off emails. That's not going to work. But to be able to kind of organize tonight some thoughts that have not yet been captured, get that to Recalc so that we are going to be doing this survey. We've hired a consultant. They're going to be starting in weeks, not months, in terms of doing this survey. We want to be able to figure out what to share in that, what kind of questions we're going to be asking. Now, the consultant has a lot of background in this, so that's going to be very helpful. But if there are particular topics or ideas, that's what I'm hoping we might be able to capture here and kind of share with them. John, on your question on the trust, I think let's look carefully at the Burbank. I think that's fairly unrestricted. I know the hospital trust is incredibly restricted, different story. But my impression on the Burbank, and I didn't get enough information to answer this completely, but I think that let's figure out how much room there is, what kinds of things really are okay. But my impression, and Marilyn and I had a little back and forth with Beth Kleppeis, who's she's kind of the owner of all this information. She knows it forward and backward by memory. The discussion we had was, you may be able to figure out some things that you can do here and utilize a bigger chunk of the money rather than kind of more of a, one meal here, one meal there, as an option for the council to think about. Back to this kind of the kitchen concept and things like that. So one of the reasons I think we want to organize this is to be able to say, we need a kitchen. We need to be able to make quality food. We need to be able to serve X hundred people, whatever that number turns out to be. That will be really helpful to this process. The problem with saying, hey, let's get a kitchen is, where are we going to put it? And, okay, we can take up the space at Pleasant Street instead of the big room, which we've now decided we're going to call it a medium room. We're not going to call it a big room anymore. But where's all the stuff going to go? So the better we organize, hey, look, we need this. And in thinking about it, we're going to come back and say, oh my goodness, we don't have space for that. So how much space do we need? So how much space do you need for a big kitchen? Is it 1,000 square feet for a big kitchen? I'm making that up, whatever kind of some of those things are. That's what Recalc will start to think about. And please, I don't mean to say Recalc is the savior to the world. I think what we really need to do is organize. I think that's the right word here. The more organized we are, then we can go to ARPA and say, we want this money from the state. Here's what we're going to do with it. Any grant we're going to do, the more organized we are with that, I think will be much more effective.
Yes, Joan.
A lot of the senior centers that don't have big kitchens cater. So that's another alternative for us, because if we had a kitchen off-site, then some of the staff would have to go off-site too, and that may not work well. Whereas I think if we really had to, we could really look at catering everything, because I know Winchester caters every day. I mean, almost. Yes, go ahead.
I'm at Peter Sanborn, and we do a monthly meal, and we get it from a local restaurant. It's delivered, packaged, and it's grab and go. They can, and it, meets the sanitation, still gives people a hot meal, but it's far less work and the center or whatever to prepare and all of that kind of stuff. And if you work with some of these places, you can get, we get really good pricing. And we're only, doing 40 a month. Whereas if you worked, farmland has been fantastic.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
The farmland in Wakefield?
The farmland in Wakefield. They deliver it. It comes, our residents rave about it. They've been delightful to work with. Green tomato, a little bit more expensive. I mean, so you can pick and choose, and you don't want to probably put your eggs all in one basket and kind of hand it around. But I think with COVID and the times that we're in, anything that comes delivered in that, for right now, at least in the near future, is going to be a benefit until you figure things and things get back to our new normal.
Sure.
And I think, no, go ahead.
I think you can sell it more if it's catered too.
Yeah. Linfield's kitchen did not look huge. We saw it. I think it's more the way it's arranged and the equipment that's in it. And they're doing drive-by lunches every single day for anyone who wants it. The cars come and the cart goes out with the packaged lunches that are prepared in this. Anyway,
Don't they have their own chef though?
They do. They have a chef, but in terms of equipment space, it's not mammoth. It's not 1,000 square feet. It's
so I have I have a small kitchen not functioning at the property, and
Yeah.
looking at minimal equipment, we're up over $40,000.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
not pots, pans, and all the rest of the stuff. And it's minimal stove and that type of stuff. So it gets very pricey very quickly. And you need to have a plan what your kitchen is for. Is it for catering? Is it for just meals? Is it for X, Y, and Z in order to get a handle on what you need to put in it?
Can I add too, maybe one of the things we could do now is talk more about how many meals, how often we would like to serve. So for example, if we said, geez, there's a need to there are 1,000 people, whatever. So we can't handle 1,000 at a time, but what if you had a weekly meal that could handle 100 or 200 people? Would that be something that we should get onto this list in terms of what we're trying to accomplish? Or if the answer is no, it shouldn't be, it should be bigger somehow. Let's put that on the list also.
Are you talking long-term now, Mark, or are you talking short-term?
Both.
Okay,
Mm.
Both. I
long-term,
think this is both.
long-term, personally, I see no reason why we should aim lower than what we used to do. I think we ought to have meals available every day.
Okay, so how many?
Well, that was, is that kind of information in the database that you manage, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we just need to get that information. We don't have it right now.
Or I should say, I think it is. I know that Mystic Valley used to do the lunches.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that was something that they handled on their own.
No, the
But,
lady in the kitchen, Amy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but she had kept track of all of the people that used to buy lunches. So,
okay.
so we must have the data in-house.
I can double check.
For your information, I think the best they ever did was 25 people.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we had said. The numbers weren't big.
Yeah.
When they had lunch and learns, I know
Yeah.
the room would be packed.
Yeah, but the regular luncheons were very poorly attended, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
So
I don't think 25 was even close. I think it was much less than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was-
I agree.
And
Okay.
Sandy, you were around here for some of those. What do you think?
Again, if you're talking a Mystic Valley lunch versus a lunch from farm stand, other
Yeah.
places, that could be part of what your draw is, or
Yeah.
not so
That's
much your draw.
Yep.
exactly. And that's what Kevin had said too. We had talked about getting that as kind of the draw. And definitely we want to get back there. But I like what Mark's saying too about how kind of compartmentalizing and, putting the goals down and
I think that'll
letting
help a
them
lot.
know.
And maybe there's a daily demand and it's modest, and there's a weekly demand or whatever, and then there are the almost the festival, the holiday kinds of activities, and maybe we think about all three. And the holiday festival makes us think more about kind of maximum size that we need, and the other ones, smaller, maybe it can be handled through catering or whatever, and then maybe there's this medium bucket that's more of a social gathering on a more than once a month basis, and people rotate. It's not all 1,000 at once.
Just back on the meals we used to have, I mean, a goodly number of those people were not able to pay, so that the meals were, given to them gratis.
Yeah.
And those people do need to be served, I think.
I do too.
Yeah. We had talked about asking people, it was I think it was when the open house, and we had asked people, like, would you be willing, would you come back? Or if we had better meals, and I mean, it wasn't worded that way, but if we went to, like you said, Karen, that's great information that you had, like, if we went to Green Tomato or something, farmland, I didn't even think of, but people without a doubt said absolutely, and I would pay up to $10 for a great meal. So that was definitely something that we were thinking of too, because I think the quality. And then someone said something at the picnic, and when Green Tomato, because we have a good relationship with them, and they had given us a really good discount, and they said, I feel like I'm being taken care of. And I also feel like when I have a good meal and something that I can save for a few days, I feel like I'm important. And I was like, wow, like I didn't even think of it that way. So I think the quality makes a difference. But I do agree with you too, John. I think, we need to make it available to everyone. Not everyone can afford those, but that's something we can definitely make happen.
Also, not everyone can get to the senior center either. So we need
Yeah.
to take into account those people who
Right.
probably
Yeah.
need it the most.
Yep.
That
Yeah, exactly.
kind of the lost population.
And
Is
I would love
Mystic
to do.
Valley, does Mystic Valley still deliver food? Is
Yep.
that, yeah,
They, I mean, if we were delivering to people in Reading at the senior center, I'm sure that we could even get volunteers. I'm volunteering with my parents or someone who live in Reading, just looking, maybe whatever the time is or something. The staff is also really good, like for special meals. So maybe if it's something, if we do once a month or something, it would be okay. We can get to those who can't make it there.
is anybody else having a problem hearing?
Yes.
Yeah,
You're breaking up.
yeah,
Me?
Yeah.
yeah.
My voice?
No, your video.
Your video and your audio. You sound like a robot.
Everything else was okay.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I haven't moved. That's weird. Am I okay now?
No.
No.
Maybe somebody else is on. In addition to you, Amy.
I think it's just an echo, but it's a nasty echo. It's pretty making it incomprehensible.
What I heard mostly was just static.
Yeah.
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 Weird.
How do we go from where we are? I mean, it sounds like everyone would like to see us be able to do things that are probably feasible. We just need to get, and again, my focus is short term. But, I'm without meeting once a month, it's really difficult for us to move forward on this. And in the absence of people who are dedicated to, the process first to identify things for which we want to write a grant and provide the research to the person, that would need it, and someone or multiple people who can actually volunteer to do the grant. How do we get from where we are to making those things happen? Because they're very doable. The money's sitting out there. We're talking about perfectly reasonable things for senior centers to do, short-term and long-term. And I would really love by 6 months from now for us to have some headway, if we could, toward this. I don't know that we don't want to continue, at exploring other options for locations as well. The place over where the library used to be keeps coming up. If we just moved, I would think it would alleviate a lot of the stresses that we're having with the facility we're in short term. We could probably get grant money, I would think, to rent it for a couple of years or whatever it takes. It's clearly a site that's been vetted by the town because they used it when the library was in transition. It just seems like a solvable problem, and if not there, somewhere else. It would do away with the mobility issues. It would give us more space to have more social distancing. I would assume the town could make some other use out of the current senior center. We rent space on Haven Street for the retirement people, I think. Maybe we could move them into space we own because there's not much over there. There are things that I don't think have to cost the town a lot of money that might be short-term helps. That's all I'm saying. But I don't know the steps, and I feel very inadequate as the chair on this, in that I don't know how, and so I'm asking for advice and suggestions on this. How do we make this go from, a really healthy discussion of short-term things we'd like to be able to do to actually doing them? Do we need to be recruiting more volunteers? Do we need to meet more often? I'm just at a little bit of a loss. I mean, my instinct is if we could prioritize and say, let's as a team try to reach this goal in a 6-month or 3-month or 9-month, whatever makes sense, window, and come together to try to start making that happen. I would feel really good. I would feel we had accomplished something as a council. Um, and I just don't know where to go on that one. I don't know if it's feasible for the Council on Aging. Other towns do it because they have a Friends of the Senior Center that raises money and they independently spend their money. And I think that's how the library came to have all of the renovations it had. The Friends of the Library, independently really of the town, were able to do a lot to push that project forward. Is it
So a
not
lot of
really-
people do. Oh, there's a lot of hands up, Marilyn, just so you
Yeah,
know.
there's three
Yeah.
hands have been up for a while
Four.
now,
Okay, I'll stop talking.
maybe
And
four.
who went up first? Any idea?
I think I did. I just have a quick question for Mark where he's on with the trustees. One committee I'm on just put in a grant request and we had to have it in by February 1st. Are there certain times throughout the year you can only do it, or does it come up the first of every month?
So if you're looking at the trusts, anytime, and the trustees meet every month. If you're looking at the town budget, then that budget cycle request needed to be in kind of by the start of, actually by January, even December to be realistic, for the next year's budget. So it depends on what money you're looking for. But let's take the Burbank Trust or the other trusts under the council, anytime you have a need.
What I'm talking about is the grants, from the state.
Okay, so first come, first served.
So the sooner the better.
So there's not just a restriction of February 1st every year.
So, sorry. So this special ARPA money,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
this is one-time money. Come and get it. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that there are communities that put together projects with good proposals, I think are going to get funded. And other folks who end up doing it later, I think won't. So there's a real need to do that, but it's not February 1st. It's as soon as possible to get that done. The only kind of timeframes that I'm familiar with that are closed. So I just got something from our state legislators saying, hey, there is going to be some earmarked money that's going to go through the state, $25,000 to $50,000 proposals. Make your list of priorities quickly. So that's another pool of money. Grants, general grants, they all have their own timeframes. I don't know what those are, depend on kind of what grant it is. But again, usually the sooner the better to get that kind of stuff done. The one fairly hard deadline is if you want to get something into the town budget, considered for the town budget, that really should be into the town manager, to going through Kevin and into the town budget, probably realistically by December for the following fiscal year, which starts July 1st, because they're going through the budget now. The town manager's budget's coming out in the next several days. And then, that train is moving ahead pretty quickly. There's still an outside chance of approaching town meeting beyond the budget. That's a possibility also. And sometimes town meeting does that. But again, the more organized we are, I think the more likely we're going to get funds from any of those buckets.
In addition, oh, I'm sorry, there's still more hands. I'll be quiet.
Can I continue just for one sec, just to
Sure.
finish the point?
Sure,
Answering
sorry.
your question, Marilyn, I think what we can do to move ahead, even if it's, what we want to do, kind of coming up with those needs and prioritizing them, I think is spot on.
Mhm.
What do we think needs to happen before we go and say we want the spot, any spot for what? Let's talk about what it is that we're looking for. And then we can say, oh, okay, great. So you're looking for this, you need about this much space. Maybe that's an opportunity down at the Market Basket Plaza. Maybe, maybe. But I think the best thing to do is make a list of these things. And I think we kind of have it. We just maybe haven't prioritized it.
Yeah.
Put it together. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4. These are the 4 things we want to do. We need these short term. They're going to continue longer term and longer term. We need space to do other activities. We need a room that seats 250 people, whatever it is. I think that'll really help short term and long term. I think the more organized we are, the better we do. And to your point, Marilyn, the Friends of the Library were instrumental in the fittings inside the library.
Uh-huh.
The taxpayers of the town paid for the library.
Yeah.
And so, but the friends with their funds and their fundraising were able to do a lot more stuff beyond, what was already in the proposal. They were able to do some other things because they had private funds. But again, it may make sense to kind of say, look, here's what we're trying to do. Then we can start raising money or asking the town or all these other pieces.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, your hand's been up forever. Is it?
I'm thinking we've started a list here, as Mark is suggesting. One, we think that we should probably reinvigorate the meal program. Two was perhaps looking at another location. So maybe we can we come up with a 3, 4, or 5, or are these the two short-term things that this group wants to focus on? I think if we spend the next few minutes just brainstorming ideas, what is it that in the short term that this group can do? If we start with food, if we start with searching out other locations, what else? What else are we not meeting the needs now that we used to meet the needs for? Maybe Amy, you can help us with that.
You're muted, Amy.
No.
I think that was your microphone breaking before.
Yeah.
I mean, now,
Static's
No.
back. How about chat? Can you chat?
probably, can you hear you? No one can hear me.
Scratchy.
No. Well, if I'm thinking if people could throw out ideas, because I think what we've said a number of times now is that we need to come up with the ideas, and then Mark says is prioritize. We've got 2 ideas. What else do we need to get back to doing that we haven't done?
Just one suggestion. So if we can talk about what the need is that requires location, that might be helpful. So if we just say location, is it an extra 500 feet, an extra 5,000 feet, an extra 50,000 feet?
Yeah, well,
The
what
problem is this cost, right?
Yeah.
So if we rent a gigantic space, that might take all the money there is, and then we don't have any
So-
money left for programs.
So Mark, what I was thinking was we just put the ideas out there. And then going back to Marilyn's idea, we form this subcommittee that looks into the details that then can report back to this group. Or perhaps the whole group is interested and we need a second meeting, to talk about the details. But, let's we're actually on a roll there. We've got 2 ideas. Do we have more ideas? I have one, actually. When Beth was here, she talked about the buttons, the life-saving buttons. I'm sorry, I call them the, help I can't
Lifeline.
get up. Yeah. I'm thinking that's a good short-term project. If we can get those upgraded and perhaps find out if we need more for our audience. I don't know. I throw that on the list. Anybody else?
I think that's an outreach one, Nancy. I mean, they're there. And what I heard Beth saying was, they weren't getting a lot of requests. I think it's a question of people don't know.
Well,
I think what Nancy has said though about the upgrading is very important.
Yeah.
Because what we have now only works when you're in your house.
Okay.
The ones that they have, Lifeline has now cost exactly the same from what I'm reading online, and they work off of satellites, so they work for when you're anywhere. So I think when Nancy mentioned upgrading, that's very important.
Sounds good.
All right. What's
Karen,
another one?
Karen, your hand's been up forever, or did you just not take it down?
No, I haven't spoken yet. So I do think it's great to throw ideas out there, get everything going, but I still think that if we're gonna make a list of things that we're going to accomplish, it's important to have all this great experience that you guys have of what worked and what didn't work before. But I also feel like we need to have data as well from Amy and like what programs were in use before? What did we forget about that was really important? So although I feel like, you know, the feelings that we have about what we feel like should be here and what we feel like, you know, maybe have forgotten, I think we really need to look at that data and not just these different ideas that we have. I feel like we need more than that. So I do think that whatever else Amy can bring should really be considered.
Yeah.
And almost for everyone to go and think about different ideas and write them down and think it over and then bring back more information. You know, ask people. So that's just my idea.
It sounds to me like it would be wise for us to try to schedule a meeting maybe to keep up the momentum in a couple of weeks, if we could, or either that or create a subcommittee. Maybe just a show of hands, how many people would like to be involved to the level of, say, meeting at least every other week, maybe every week on this until we get something rolling? I would. Nancy would. So we're going to be thin on a subcommittee. And this gets back to, we need more volunteers. It's a challenge we face. And I think we spend a lot of time going around in circles, and it's not that we really disagree with each other. We just haven't got the people power to move things forward, because this stuff isn't hard. It takes time and energy, but it's pretty, if you're logical, as you say, Mark, it's pretty, you know, you got to figure out the need, you got to come up with the numbers, you're right, Karen, you got to just write the proposal, and, you know, we may or may not get it, but it takes energy and time and commitment. And I'm not sure where to go with this. I don't want to just give up on all of this because we haven't got the people power.
Well, I think that Amy's numbers will help us tremendously to narrow down whether you can't have the program because there's not enough space, there wasn't enough interest. So I think that will help us to prioritize, and then location may become a bigger priority because you can't do the things that people want to do, but you'll have the numbers, as we said, to back that up. And the same thing, you know, with the meal program. If she has the numbers and you can kind of narrow those things down, some of those are going to overlap each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
How about a short-term meeting with just Amy, Nancy, and myself, and anyone else who wants to join us? And we'll try to get those numbers. How's that sound to you and Amy and Nancy, since I'm sort of volunteering? Karen, are you volunteering as well? Great.
Marilyn, the only concern is if you get toward a quorum, then you need to post.
Right,
So
but I think
you either should stay below a quorum, or you should post a meeting and make sure you have enough people to reach a quorum.
I think our quorum's 6.
Mm.
So I think we're okay.
Yeah, and if you do get 6, or if you get 6 or more people, what you can do is you can ask someone to step off the call, and you'll catch them up later.
Okay.
And that way stay under where you need to be.
All right, good strategies. Could we just tentatively, just to be efficient, look at calendars? Today is the 7th. Any night next week except Wednesday works for me. How do your schedules look? Karen, you're muted.
Oops, Monday's Valentine's Day, so we're not going to.
Yeah, no, not that.
So not Monday, not Wednesday.
Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday work for me. Fridays are sort of play nights, so if we could avoid Fridays, that would be nice probably for everyone.
I couldn't
Tuesday
do
or
a,
Thursday is good.
Nancy, Amy?
I couldn't do a Friday night. Sorry. Can you hear me?
What? Not all of it. Would try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Starting to lose my voice. I don't think I could do a Friday night. I could probably do someplace. Is it only nighttime that would work?
I'm through work at 4:15, so I could be somewhere by 4:30, if that helps.
I can do 4:30,
Okay,
or I could do daytime too. If you need
okay.
help getting stuff organized for the
Yeah.
evening, I can help do that.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, that would be good. And I can get, I think now we've been out for a month. So when I'm there, like today, I thought I'd have a lot of desk time to do things, and it was crazy. And we're also doing a staggered, we don't have all the staff in right now. So, um, yeah, I could definitely get the data numbers. Do you guys just want me to do the programs? Because I do know now with COVID, nothing is going to be normal. So when we did classes that were packed, 2 years ago or pre-COVID, it won't indicate it on the reports I run. You know what I mean?
I might have I'm a pack rat, and Jane distributed this stuff every single month. It's
Okay.
possible that I've got stuff from pre-COVID from Jane's packets that she put out every single month. The town may even have this because it was always included in the monthly packets that were sent out. I don't know how long those get archived, but there's a couple of
Okay.
places we could look for older data that might give us a more normal measure of how the world goes.
Okay.
Could we aim for Thursday, the 17th? Does that work for you, Nancy?
Yeah,
Okay. And do we want to aim for like 4:30? Does that work for everyone?
yeah.
All right. We have started. We are making a step forward. It will be prioritized. It will have numbers, and it will hopefully alleviate some short-term problems. Check. Mark, in terms of giving you the feedback you need by Wednesday, I know I rattled off a whole bunch of things. Do other people have things in mind that they'd like to share with Mark? I don't know if you had a chance to look at those minutes that got handed out during the recalc meeting or not, but for the things they've already thought of. And short of people sending you emails, Mark, I don't know how to organize it in this time frame for other ideas. I know you don't want to be bombarded with stuff, but
So if the people have ideas now, that would be ideal.
I know. Maybe if we could share on the screen what that list was again. Someone have it handy that they could share it? Do you have it, Mark?
I am trying to figure out where it's going to be.
All right, maybe while you hunt for that, because it's getting on to 7:45 and I have to teach in the morning and have a whole class I haven't got organized yet, but I made it through today's class, so that was a minor miracle. But we could go on to our next agenda item and then come back, give everyone a minute to sort of have it cooking, back burner while we're working on the next agenda item. All right, let's do that. We're doing elder outreach planning. In the packet, we had included a copy of the draft flyer that Nancy and I had pulled together back in December, back when we had been invited to include it in the census mailing. And so Nancy and I basically combed through the website and identified sort of as much of the full range as we could of the kind of information and the contacts that are useful to the elderly population. So it's not specific to any one month, in contrast to pleasantries. It's instead meant to be a document that's a sort of, here's the range of what's available and how you find out about it. Would you agree, Nancy, that characterizes it pretty well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the thought was, because we had been invited to put it in the census, that best of all worlds, it's going to go to every single household. So, it's a definite outreach effort that in theory could reach everyone. Some people just put stuff in the trash. What can you do? But certainly far more than currently are getting any information would. And we didn't end up sharing it with everyone because before the December meeting, the plan changed and the decision was that it's not the time. But we realized we, as a result, never shared it with anyone. So probably had no notion of what we were even talking about. So we wanted.
No, it was in the packet, Marilyn.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
In December?
I don't know if it was December's or November's, but it was in the packet.
Okay. I know the postcard was in the November packet.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think the flyer went
Okay.
out in December, Nancy, because
the postcard is very similar
Yeah,
to the flyer.
yeah, but the flyer is just much more detailed. There's a lot more
Mhm.
information. It sounds like there's a meeting underway to look at, from what, can't remember whether it was you, Mark, or you, John, that mentioned it, to re-examine including that in something that would go out with the surveys. Is that what the thought is? Or Amy, you were the one that mentioned it. You said the flyer was being discussed in conjunction with recalc and informing people in preparation for the surveys.
When I spoke with Kevin this morning, he said, yeah, that would be discuss the flyer, strategize how to best to use it.
Hmm.
I'd like to recommend that if recalc doesn't have a plan to get it out or something very similar soon, we should go back to, I mean, again, this is another one of our responsibilities as a council on aging, is to educate the community. There's nothing in there that's not on the website. So it's not like we're rabble rousing and trying to get interest in something that's new. It's just basic information that's easily accessible, as opposed to on the website where it's challenged to find a lot of this, particularly if you're not very tech savvy. And to get it to every household that has someone who's, of whatever age cutoff we want to pick, 55, 60, 65, whatever. We've lost the opportunity to have it be no cost because we're not, the decision was the time wasn't right with the census, but we can pay for it. And going back to those trust funds, we've got the money to fund this. And we'd like to get it out is, no later than next month, because if recalc starts doing surveys and people never heard of these things, it just isn't going to sink in the way that if they're aware of what's out there. And yes, Karen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the flyer. There's a typo.
Okay.
Above Carrie Coughlin's name. The telephone number says 781-042 instead of 942, or I assume it should be 942.
That's important. Thank you.
I believe that's something that was addressed. If we're talking about the same piece of paper, I mentioned it down at the Pleasant Street Center, and they said they were aware of it. I think we're talking about the same thing, the same document,
The same typo or the same document?
the same typo on the
Okay.
phone number.
Okay, we will correct the typo. But in terms of mailing this
I think
out,
it's been corrected, is what I'm saying.
okay.
Hmm.
Nancy and I kind of are the ones that have the originals. I'm not even sure we sent it in Word format as opposed to a PDF to the Pleasant Street Center. So I don't know that it could have been corrected there, but we'll get it
Yeah.
corrected if it hasn't been.
Hmm.
I think we
Yeah.
sent it as a PDF.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, John, you're talking about the pleasantries. I think it's something different.
And it could be, they picked up the number off the Pleasantries.
That's possible.
Oh, that's possible.
That's very
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone else was talking.
That's okay.
So
I would
Karen has her hand up.
advocate, I would advocate that it goes to every household if cost prohibitive, because when I deal with the elderly, there's a lot of the elderly that don't understand this, but someone who's guiding them, or a parent, a sibling, or a adult child. And I think it's important that everyone knows what's happening at the senior center, no matter how old you are. So depending on cost, I would say it just goes to every household.
Yes, Mark.
Just to echo what Karen was saying, I think if we do it as a bulk mailing, it's very cost effective to go to everybody.
Okay. More is better.
Yeah.
I found the document, Marilyn.
Thank you. Let's just finish this piece up and then we'll come back to it if we may. Are we at a position that we want to have a motion to go forward with this? We could do at this point, we don't have the exact pricing and all, so we can't put an exact motion to spend X dollars on it yet. But we could have a motion to get it out by, say, third week of February or end of February, first week of March, whatever we think is reasonable. Yes, Joan.
Mayor, the pleasantries was bulk mail all the time when we did the mass mailings. So
Good.
we've done bulk before,
Good to know. Thank you.
but we'd only know how much 5,000 or 6,000 are. Not 25,000.
We can find out, which is why I say we can't do a dollar motion at this meeting. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think we need to do the research, but we could
Yeah.
have a motion to commit to getting the flyer out by some date in March, and we could come back at the next meeting with the dollar amount. Or we could have a motion to investigate with the intent to get it out in March, for example. Then we could do the homework between now and our next meeting and look to get this out then. Yes, Nancy?
I want to ask Mark, when do you think the consultant is going to start doing outreach to the community? Because I think we want to get the flyer out before the consultant starts to do the outreach for recalc. So do you think they're going to start that in March, or he or she?
At the latest, because the goal is to have information for town meeting. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's in February. Well, I guess it would surprise me a little bit, but.
Yeah. So
So-
maybe you can keep Marilyn in the loop and,
Yeah, I would think that to do something in the next 2 weeks, if you want to get ahead of it, I'd say do it in the next couple of weeks. And just wild guesses, $3,000 to $6,000.
We can handle that.
Mark,
Marilyn,
it's going to everybody in town. Does it have to be vetted through anybody else, lawyer or anything like that?
So I think just like pleasantries, whatever pleasantries go through is the same thing. I don't know why there'd be anything else required. And the council's gonna pay for it. So I
Just
don't
wanted
think
to
so.
make sure before. we-
Yeah, I
the
know,
end button.
we're all kind of, everything is red hot. Yeah, I don't think I assume it's just like pleasantries. That doesn't get checked by anyone other than
No.
council.
no. Pleasantries used to get checked just by Jane.
Yeah, you guys are publishing it. I don't think it's an issue.
Okay, and Mark, you had seen it already in the select board. You thought, you gave us a thumbs up back when we first gave it to you. I don't know if that was just you or if that was the select board that was thumb upping, but you thought it was great when we circulated it back in December before it got nixed.
Marilyn, just a quick question.
Yes,
You have to find out whether town will be able to give you labels for everybody in town. I don't know who provides them, whether Laura gets them or what, for everybody.
you could generate those from Excel, but we'll have
Yeah,
to.
but
ask
you-
her how
But
she
you have
does
to have
it.
the data
I-
someplace.
I actually got the list, the census list from the clerk's office.
From
So
Laura.
if need be, we could use those, but I'm sure Laura will have the info.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you have to
Yeah.
talk to her.
So I
Yeah.
think if you're gonna, so this is worth checking, but I think if you do a bulk mailing, I think you can, if you work with a mailing house, they'd prefer just to have a data file and then
Yeah.
you do everything from there.
all the better. The census data, Nancy, I don't know how up to date the new one is. I confess I just put my census in the box yesterday.
No. The
But-
other, the federal census,
Federal census?
or, yeah, isn't that what it is, Mark?
Yes,
Yeah.
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 It's not as good as the local, but it's a good start.
Okay. Nancy and I have been plugging away at this. Do you think, Nancy, we could continue to plug away at some of these details by the end of the week? And
Yeah, I mean, what is the protocol, like, if I think you can do it, Marilyn. I think you can send out an email to individuals with the flyer, like if it were to be updated or changed in any way in order to reformat it. And then that doesn't impact the rules of notification of a meeting.
now I'm just thinking about getting the pricing finding out about picking a bulk mailing house.
Oh, yeah, I can actually give them a call tomorrow.
That's what I was thinking. I was hoping you'd
Yeah.
volunteer that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So our goal is to get it out in the next 2 weeks. Is that what you're telling us, Mark?
If you want to be ahead, I think so.
Yeah.
We'll know better on Wednesday night. We'll see. So Jean
Okay.
Delios is kind of determining the schedule.
All right, so we'll need to get our numbers together, and then what we're going to need, unless we want to just take a stab at it and have a motion to approve some mailing, bulk mailing up to some reasonable amount, doesn't mean we have to spend that much, but it would authorize us to go ahead if we can get all the ducks in a row.
All right, so I make a motion that we get the mailing ready and to mail out by the at minimum the end of February and approve a budget of $7,000 in order to complete the mailing.
We think
I
that's.
second.
I second it.
All right, let me take a vote.
Oh,
I'm just questioning whether we might want to up it to 10,000.
I was just going to say that too. I think you should, Marilyn.
yeah,
All right, I amend the motion to go up to $10,000 for the mailing.
I second it.
And which fund would this come from?
Ah. Who knows?
Burbank?
Can this come out of Burbank?
How do you, when was the last time a mailing was done? Does anybody know, and what fund
2
was it?
years ago.
Yep.
So you might want to just put a quick call to the treasurer and just ask them, how did we pay for printing last time?
Can we make the motion be to use the fund that's been used for pleasantries? How's that? What do we use to pay for pleasantries now? Because you mail some out, don't you? Or is it all email now, Amy? You're
You're
muted.
muted.
She mails them out, Marilyn.
But what fund, who pays for the mailing? Does it come out of one of the funds?
I don't know.
I am not too sure, to be honest with you. I know right now we haven't been sending out mailing
Oh, you
out. We email most of them. Yeah,
Okay.
we give them to Amanda Beatrice, the
Okay.
clerk's office in Reading.
How about if we make the motion up to 10 grand from whichever fund has been used to mail pleasantries in the past?
Okay, so make a motion that we mail out the flyer. You up to $10,000 using whatever fund has been used in the past for mailings.
Second it.
Okay, let's have a roll call. We're getting things done tonight. It's so exciting. We got who's here? Joan Coco,
Yes.
Karen Fontino,
Yes.
John Parsons?
No,
No? Okay. Karen Panett,
Yes,
Sandy Schaefer,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. And Nancy Zimlack.
yes.
So we have how many in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor, 1 opposed. So it passes. We're gonna send a brochure out and have outreach. I'm so excited.
Because sorry, I'm just stepping in because I'm still kind of new to this, but will this be dependent on, Kevin did say how he was going to reach out to the consultant I just want to make sure that I am doing the right thing, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. And if the consultant were suddenly to say, hey, you don't want
Yeah,
to tell people to do something, because then the
Yeah.
results won't be what we're hoping to get back.
yeah,
I
because
think-
Kevin was pretty clear in his, every month. I just don't want I feel like every month he's been telling his concerns, the reason why we're not doing it. We always said we're definitely going to be doing it.
Mhm.
But I just want to make sure that we have all the ducks in a row before, you know. I don't want to kind of go behind them and say something, you know.
Yeah, I respect that. I would point out that there's absolutely nothing in this flyer that tells anybody to do anything. It's simply taking verbatim what's on the website and putting it on the flyer. So there's nothing new here.
I know, but
I appreciate what you're saying.
yeah, because like we said, Maryland, right now, it's still COVID is still going on. And if it's kind of like the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. They will come, and that's great. But I know, speaking for my staff and me, we want to make sure that we are doing the best we can with what we have.
I
And if
understand.
we're turning people away without, you know, having the ability to serve them, then it's kind of like shooting ourselves in the foot. And I hate to sound negative. I just want to.
I understand, Amy. I don't have an easy answer to it. I mean, I would argue that we are, in essence, turning people away by not communicating what's available. I mean, we're letting people just drift off because we're just keeping it sort of it's not closed because it is on the website, but it's not easy to find on the website. And so we're through attrition, we're in essence letting people drift away, if not turning them away.
I like I said, I hear you and I'm with you. But if you could see how busy it was today and people falling and blood everywhere and you know, I just want to make sure that we're not.
Right. In part, and I don't know, maybe Mark, you can suggest something. We've hit this backlog for 2 years now, and with good reasons, but we're also at a point that we've got to start moving forward. And I think it would be really distressing to stop doing outreach for the next 3 to 5 years, because that's what we're talking about realistically here. I don't think anyone sees a cure for COVID in the short term. If we can't do outreach, we're effectively turning people away. A lot of that stuff, it's not a turning away. I mean, thing like information about the lifelines on there. People don't know about that. Lots don't. That's not going to stress, I don't think, the Pleasant Street Center. That's another whole fund that's just being underspent because the information just isn't out there. It's sort of, we covered everything that's there on the website. I don't know how we can not have outreach.
And I'm not saying that we can't, we should. And you know, I agree with that. That's my whole background.
I know.
But
We've
I
been
want to make sure I do it
now.
right.
We've been postponing for a full year, and it just, I don't see it changing in the short term. And it really distresses me that we're not doing outreach in general. But on top of it, it really, I think, undermines, and I brought this up at the recalc meeting, the research that they can do. If you ask a bunch of people who never heard about Lifeline being available, if they want it different, you know, they're going to say, huh? You know, I think we need some baseline information out there that normally would have been in the past, always was with pleasantries. And, you know, with pleasantries, maybe the lesson from it is that it didn't cause 7,000 people to storm the Pleasant Street Center. I'd like to think that it kept interest up perhaps a little higher. We could possibly do things like help with short-term attempts to cover the phones to help return phone calls if you do get a flood. You know, there are things like that we could talk about trying to do to help, and I think we'd be happy to. But I don't know when the time is. We keep getting told it's 3 to 6 months from now. Well, it's not. It's not going to radically change. And I don't want us to undermine the value of the surveys that Recalc is going to run, because people just have no clue there even is a Pleasant Street Center. People have no clue that you have social services available through the town. And part of our obligation as a council is to just educate people. So it's a rough one. I don't know, Mark, have you got any wisdom to share on this?
So the only thing I'd suggest thinking about is whatever this consultant does, I don't think that their focus is going to be educating the community about current programs or Pleasant Street Center, anything like that at all. It's all asking questions about what you'd like to see and having some suggestions as to what that looks like. So I think that really is a separate activity from what you're talking about. And on the outreach side, so two things. One, if since this is a first mailing, let's call it, and you're going to want to do others, I just be a little careful about how much money we're spending here. If it really is, I mean, I'm sure it's not 10 grand, but if it was, that really limits how many you're going to be able to do. So I'd be a little careful of that. And the last thing would be just to make sure that with this mailing, there's the right stuff is going out. So it's updating people as to what's going on. If there's a concern that there's going to be a deluge of calls, I think either we deal with that now, or we have another meeting before that goes out and think about how to deal with that. What if it does happen? How is it going to get handled? I think that if we wait until it's gone, it'll be too late. You won't be able to react to it. So those would be the only things. And it would be great to obviously to have Kevin's input because he's kind of directing where things are going to go anyway. So I don't know if there's a way to, suggest another meeting in a couple of weeks and make sure that kind of we get all the ducks lined up before acting on on sending it. Maybe get it ready, but don't do it until kind of reconnecting with Kevin and make sure that that all makes sense. And if everybody is in line, great, let it rip.
I agree with that.
Are people available for another meeting? I mean, I don't think we have enough information to do the dollars and cents and which fund and everything I think offering to hire temps to help if there were a lot of calls, I think is a very realistic thing. I think if you get a surge of calls, you're going to see it right around the time of the mailing and it will die off. So I think possibly to get you over a hump might be what that would be about. I think we probably need to do some research to have a meaningful motion on this and give Kevin time to have his input and whoever else may need it. So I'm looking at the calendar for another meeting, I guess. In terms of what you had to say, Mark, about they're not going to ask about things that are current. The flyer doesn't really do that. There's nothing that's going to tell you what's running in February or March or so forth. It's going to tell you there's a thing called pleasantries, and this is how you find out about it. In terms of asking people what kinds of programming they may want, I think you're going to find you've got an audience. A lot of them have no idea what you're talking about. Programming, Pleasant Street Center, what are you talking about?
So I think that you probably won't talk about Pleasant Street, but I really think that the consultants' input, they've done this before, this kind of survey. They probably have pretty good insight on how to talk about it and who to reach out to and what means to communicate it. And that might be really helpful to have.
Yeah, the surveys they did, I mean, it's the same group that did the last study. It's the UMass. It's the exact same group.
But 4 years later in the COVID world.
But the kinds of questions they asked did not have that kind of couching in them, Mark.
Couching of what? I'm sorry.
Of explaining to people so they really understand what it means when they're talking about programming. I think
it'll be specific. It's not going to say programming. It's going to say meals. It's going to say emergency communication equipment. It's going to say space for social activities of 100 people.
They've asked about things like that in the past, and the issue is, again, that I think there's a gap for a lot of people, especially older people that have not been introduced to this, that our general outreach would help fill, of making an awareness that they really are eligible. Because a lot of people, I think, just say, oh, I'm not eligible for elder services either because I'm not really old or because they think that there are monetary considerations to qualify or all sorts of things. I just think there's some basic education about what people might reasonably expect from their community that would help them think more deeply about, oh, maybe I would like an exercise class. Maybe I would like that. As opposed to saying, oh, the town, no, I don't need it. I wouldn't qualify. I just think they need to understand more. It cannot do anything but give you more accurate data, is what I guess I would say. And I don't think that UMass is likely to ask that much because it's hard to do. It's a lot to communicate. And if you're just providing information, you're not going to hold their attention to get the survey at the same
Yeah.
time.
And I would imagine it's
if
not
he
just
was-
surveys. It's not just
And if
mail surveys. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that there'll be other activities, including
There's-
community meetings.
Yeah,
They-
there's 2 additional meetings that he's gonna hold. My concern is that the over 60 population, if this is not actively promoted, they're gonna be left out of this.
Yeah.
And we are not gonna have any input whatsoever. And we are gonna end up with what we have now. So I agree with Marilyn. I think we need to get the word out to let people know the baseline. These are the programs we have now. There's mention in this flyer about recalc. We could change it just a little bit by saying recalc flyers, a recalc survey is coming. You need to know these things in order to answer the survey and identify what your needs are. I'm real concerned that the over 60 population is not going to be actively sought out, and it's not a population that's on the town website or is following the Reading Rave or whatever it is, because they're not on Facebook.
Can I suggest, Nancy? I think you make a great point. Would it make sense to coordinate this with a little bit more with the consultant or get some input?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of kind of trying to jump ahead of it or do it or not do it, say, okay, here's what we're trying to do. Let's figure out how to get it done. You know, what's the best way to do it? And they may say, you know, knock yourself out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do it. Or they
that-
might say, hey, it'd be great if you could do X.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I think the reality probably would be to find a way to inform people beyond just a flyer, is to find a way to get some communication going. So people, before they participate in the survey, maybe they ask questions or they
Exactly.
listen. Maybe
And
there's a
Mark,
way
that
to
goes
do that.
back to what I was saying at the very beginning of the meeting when Amy was reporting that there's a meeting coming up. And I asked if we could be included in that discussion with the consultant about the flyer. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
I think I probably was right before I joined.
I'm sorry,
was,
you
yeah.
weren't here. When Amy brought it up, my feedback was it would be good if we could be involved in that discussion. And I don't know
I
how we
was-
make that happen. I think we need a formal invitation to the meeting or.
Well, I think I was reporting for Kevin, and Kevin did say that him and Jean were going to initially meet with the consultant. So I'll have to ask him, but it sounds like it's just going to be a preliminary. Yeah, recal consultant. It's gonna preliminary discussion about the flyer and strategies. So I think it.
The sooner we can be involved, I think the more likely we can dovetail these operations, because I'm all for coordinating it with Recalc. And Nancy, I know you were thinking along similar lines. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, what do we do with the motion that we all
That we
agreed
approved?
to?
So I think someone who voted yes could vote for a reconsideration of the motion.
Sure. Would you like me to? Would you like me to, Marilyn?
Sure.
Yes. We would like to reconsider the previous motion. Right?
Yeah.
That's all you need, right?
Yeah. Anyone
And I
want a
think you just need to
second?
say that you voted for it, Joan.
Oh, and I voted for it. Yes.
Yeah.
The previous motion that I voted for
All right.
But-
should be
that's what-
reconsidered.
We
But
need-
do we have to take a vote again of all the members?
All right, so we need
Yeah.
a
Yep.
second. So we need a second to Joan's reconsideration.
Second,
Okay. I'll take the vote. Any discussion before I take the vote?
I don't think so.
Okay. We're making progress. We're working through these things and we're being open-minded and fair. It's a good process. The vote. We have Joan,
Yes.
Karen Fatino,
Yes.
John Parsons?
No.
Oh, you know again.
You don't want to reconsider, John?
Oh, am I voting just to reconsider?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that I'll vote for, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say, you're going around in circles otherwise. You don't want it, but you don't not want it. Got to have a decision here. Karen Panett. You're muted, Karen.
Yes.
Sandy Schaefer,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. Nancy Zimlek,
No,
okay. So we had 6 in favor of reconsideration and 1 opposed. So we're reconsidering.
okay.
So you can have a discussion and then take a vote on the reconsideration.
All right, but we do need a concrete process in place, I think, for us to get engaged in this discussion with the consultant and with Kevin and Amy and Jean and whoever else needs to be involved.
And I took notes and I'm gonna have a conversation with Kevin tomorrow and let him know, definitely.
All
We will
right,
get there, I promise.
okay. Another thing that we had asked, we tabled till February back in December was possibly redoing where is it? I wrote it down. It was the pandemic survey that we did 2 years ago. We did it by SurveyMonkey. And we had talked about reissuing that just as it is. And we might tweak a few questions a little bit. But at the beginning of the pandemic, we sent out a very short SurveyMonkey survey asking people basically, were they okay? Did they need something from us? And so forth. I haven't got it in front of me now, and I'm sure Kevin will want to weigh in on it. But maybe we can put that on the agenda for the March meeting to consider. It's another thing that might dovetail nicely with recalc. But it was very compelling at the time. I mean, people really were crying out for help and giving us strong feedback about what the pandemic was doing to them. It would be nice to have an update on how people are doing now and what do they still need. Maybe we can put that on the March agenda. And with that, I think we can come back to your document, Mark.
Actually, no, we got one more thing.
Oh,
The motion has been reconsidered. Now you
Oh.
need to take a vote on the motion. So a yes vote would be, let's do it, spending up to the $10,000 for the mailing. And a no vote would be, no, we're not doing it right now.
okay. So we need a motion. Do we need a new motion saying we're not going to do it?
Motion to reconsider, wasn't that it?
Yeah.
Oh, so you've agreed to reconsider it. So
Yeah.
now you need to vote on it. So
We
now
did.
Yes,
it's like
we
it
did.
just came back. Well,
We
you had the
did.
motion to reconsider, you had a vote that said, yes, everybody wants to reconsider it. Now you have to vote on the motion again.
Okay, so we're voting on the original motion to spend up to 10 grand out of whatever the fund was that we used in the past for pleasantries to get something out by end of February, I think it was. So,
So is a no that we're not gonna do it for the
Yes,
time being?
it's a
Okay.
no.
all right,
Okay.
so do we have a motion to, so we need to re-ask the motion as it was, right?
Yes.
So Karen, I don't know if you can.
So the motion was to send out the flyer by the end of February using whatever funds are available through prior mailings,
Up to $10,000.
up to $10,000.
Do we have a
Okay.
second?
Second,
Okay, so I'll do the vote again on this. Joan Coco.
no.
Okay.
Right? No? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Correct.
You're supposed to say whatever's on your mind, but if
No,
you're trying,
no.
if you're
You don't
trying
want me to do
to
that.
leave, if you're trying to leave time to reconsider, no is the answer.
That's not a yes or no answer, Jonah.
Yes. Karen Fantino,
No.
okay. John Parsons,
I guess I'm not 100% sure exactly what we're voting on to do what at this point.
it's the original motion, we're taking a new vote on
Canceling
it.
the mailing right now.
Yes,
then yes. I want to cancel the mailing right now.
So
that's a no.
so that's a
That's a
no.
no. Okay. I guess I'm used to the fact that when these meetings started, or at least when I started, we had an unwritten rule that we only went an hour. We're pushing 2 hours now.
I know, but we're
Welcome.
getting so much done.
He's not
Karen,
used to
Welcome
having
to
it
the new
done.
world, John.
Things
No.
get a little foggy.
Karen Panett,
No,
Sandy Schaefer,
No.
Marilyn Shapley, no, sadly. And Nancy,
Yes.
okay. So we are six
And one, still.
six opposed to it and one in favor at this point, so it fails.
Yep.
So close and yet so far. All right, this
You
was
guys
the
able to
list.
see the sheet?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So these are the topics that we discussed. This, I think, is January 12th, and this is what we shared at the last meeting. So the focus was there's not enough space to run these kinds of activities. So it included
Yeah.
athletics, fitness, locker room, showers, multiple programs at the same time, setup, cleaning, coordinated maintenance and storage, common space, meals with a real kitchen, a meeting space, small group space, program staff and space, support for people supporting elders, private counseling space, affordability of programs, specialty rooms for things like crafts, supportive daycare, non-licensed, or sorry, not licensed, not non-licensed, not licensed, a covered carport for inclement weather, recharging stations for electric vehicles, food pantry, emergency center as a function when there's extreme heat or extreme cold, health services, outdoor patio, bocce courts, indoor and outdoor
Wow.
space, town meeting space came up, adult daycare. We talked a little bit about transportation, nutrition services, some fun activities like dance, music, special speakers, cooking classes. And I think that's the list. Oh, and special trips, like to Encore or to museums, harbor cruises, beach trips. So those are the kinds of things we discussed. Are there things that strike you? Oh my gosh, you didn't mention such and such.
No.
I think Marilyn added last time some kind of waiting reception area.
I did.
Yes.
And I also asked that we explicitly put bathrooms on every floor on the list, and people kind of said, oh, that's a given, but my response to that is still that good-hearted, well-meaning people created the current Pleasant Street Center and somehow managed to not think a first floor bathroom was critical. So I think it needs to be explicitly on the list because apparently it's something that one can go awry on pretty easily.
I don't know how you'd put this on the list, but somehow to have rooms set up for activities, like I know we have a lot of people that play games, and in order to do that, the center has to break down and set up after the activities. Same for the Zumba and the painting. So some kind of rooms that don't require that breakdown, but are for specific activities.
Well, that would be specialty rooms,
Specialty
I think,
rooms.
Nancy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
dedicated ones.
But it's a good thought. It's an important thought. That's
Yeah.
a lot of what we talked
Because
about.
it's a staff thing.
Maybe a library, a resource room. You know, not a full library like public library, but a resource room with brochures about mass health and things like that that are just regularly stocked.
Do you have like a gym on here?
Yes, athletics, first item.
Okay.
and potentially locker rooms.
Wow. Swimming pool. I want a swimming pool. You laugh. The Y has no evening hours left for the swimming pool. They've given them away. It is impossible to swim at the pool if you have a full-time job these days, except at 5 in the morning. And there are places that, in addition to having a lap pool, they work deals with rehab places, like the Y up in North Andover. They have rehab, water-based rehab that goes on because they've got a pool that's dedicated to it. I mean, if we're going to have a wish list, let's get it right. But I want a swimming pool.
Indoor, I assume you mean.
Yes, 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 indoor. Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
suggest.
If you get that, you're a miracle worker.
Yeah.
If you don't aim high, you never get very far.
If you folks have other ideas, send them to John or me, and we'll bring them up into the group. But I think maybe it's good that we have a pretty good start on some of the most obvious ones. That's great. That's what we'll start with.
I think we have covered everything that was on tonight's agenda.
Goody.
Amy, we'll look to hear from you and/or Kevin regarding meeting, and/or John and Mark regarding meeting with the consultant and coordinating efforts on getting outreach out in tandem with, in addition to whatever it needs to be, to what the contract covers for them to do. We've got money to fund it, and it's our mission and our obligation to do this as well. So,
Carol, can I throw out just a 10-second idea too? One of the things that maybe comes up when and I think it's Kevin and Jean that'll talk to the consultant. Maybe we can get some of the consultant services to help with suggestions on the specifics of the outreach we're talking about, expanding the outreach, and maybe for a modest amount of money, that's a service we can get from them that would be really helpful. I just throwing it out there as an idea.
it sounds good to me personally.
Mhm.
If nothing else, it's getting it seriously recognized as something we need to do for this community as a whole and to support Recalc. So Amy, we'll or from some combination of you, hopefully within the next couple of days, we'll hear how we can get pulled into that process. A meeting time and date, I think, is what we need on it. And on Thursday, the 17th at 4:30, Nancy, Amy, myself, and it's Karen Panette that volunteered, right? Yes, we'll meet at that. I get lost in my Karens. Sorry. I tend to write just down the first name and then which one was it? Okay, and we will meet, we'll do a Zoom. And
I'll meet in person if anybody else wants to.
I'm
This
available.
doesn't have anything to do with that meeting, but I was gonna, before we ended tonight, say that I think we would be far more productive when we start meeting in person again. I think it's just, yeah, I can see a few people shaking their head yes with us. I think we should start thinking about how quickly we can do that, or how soon we can do that. And you also said on this Thursday meeting, anybody else that might be available. So you should send a Zoom to everybody just in case somebody is available. If it's going to be a Zoom and not in person. Nancy said she could meet in person, so.
I can meet in person too.
I
Okay.
can too.
So can I.
So
Okay, do you
Maybe
guys
get
want
the
to come to the
senior center
senior
then.
center?
I
Yeah.
can do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make sure. It's
Marilyn,
a
can I-
cold
can I
day. I'll make
suggest-
sure they don't shut the
Yeah.
heat off.
It sounds like you may have a quorum. Maybe just
Oh,
post it.
yeah.
So post it.
All right. And
Post
how
a
do we
meeting.
post it? Can Kevin help us with that or whoever?
Yeah. And if you don't have a quorum, you don't call to order.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right.
When he calls me to check in tomorrow, I have a laundry list for him.
This is happens, you can't be there. But I think
I still think he's in the arena watching the bean pot. I don't care what anybody says.
that could be. I think we're making headway. I think we're coming down to logical steps to start moving things forward on a number of directions. So I feel good about it. I'd feel better if we had managed finally to get over this outreach hurdle, but we're making progress.
We're getting there. Yeah, because I'm with you. I would love to get it out to everyone. I really would.
And
We'll get
again,
there.
to reiterate, we're happy to work with you to try to manage a surge of phone calls if that's what happens.
Thank you. I know you guys are, and we really appreciate it. I think just the first day being back after being closed for a month, no one knew what to expect. It went right out of the gates. It was all mayhem, but
I understand. And I again would just encourage, because I know I have to believe Kevin's going to get really concerned, because he's been the person that's been really concerned about doing this all along. But although we had the brief moment when he was all for going out in the census, but that passed quickly. But I just encourage you to think about when pleasantries used to go out. I don't recall ever hearing that the Pleasant Street Center got swamped with a big, huge demand. It's basic information. It's stuff people may keep on the refrigerator for 6 months from now of, oh yeah, there was a contact. That's the goal. We're not trying to,
The only thing, remember, this is going out to every household, not just the Pleasantry
It's
only
true.
went out to.
It's true.
yeah.
It's true.
There is could be a little bit bigger impact.
It could, but we're happy to explore ways to mitigate that with you. So I'm glad we're going to have a dialogue on it, and hopefully we're going to get it out the door soon.
Okay.
And
All right.
on a
Here we
quick
go.
side note, some
Here
good
we
news,
go.
Marilyn. Oh, sorry. Quick
Go
side
ahead.
note, good news last week. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Last week when I went to the wake, I saw a group of seniors who were not willing to admit they're seniors, but they joked around and they said that they were planning, and a group of them were planning to come to more activities and to be more involved.
Great.
So I thought that was very good.
That
And
is good.
Russ Graham, I talked to him and I thought he would be a really good person to maybe be on Recalc, because he knows. Mark, do you know? I go, yeah.
Oh, Russ.
Yeah, so he's I saw him last week, and I don't know if he had mentioned about he saw the Recalc. I don't know if you want to reach out to him, or
I'm
'cause
happy
he
to reach out to him.
remembers.
If I could mention also, there's one opening on Recalc at the moment, and we actually have multiple candidates, and we're having a volunteer appointment subcommittee meeting on Thursday night.
Oh, okay.
So I suspect we will probably appoint someone to fill that vacancy on Thursday night. And then,
Okay,
sorry,
all right.
we'll
No.
vote to appoint it, bring it back to the select board for next Tuesday.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I just happened to see him.
Just so I'm clear on protocol, we've agreed we'll meet at 4:30 at the Pleasant Street Center on the 17th. So we need to post it. Okay. I answered my own question.
What are we going to call this meeting? Subcommittee?
Yeah.
It's not
No.
actually a subcommittee.
No, discussion.
It's a meeting.
Discussion group.
If you're posting it, isn't it just another meeting?
Mhm.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to be named anything
Oh,
special.
all right. In that case,
Yeah,
it's
your
just a
agenda is
meeting.
discussion of priorities.
All right. Priorities.
What's the score, John?
Oh, you're muted,
You're
John.
muted. You're muted, John. John,
John,
we can't hear you.
you're muted.
Yeah, I know. BU won the first game 4-3 over Harvard, and this game has just started. So,
Uh-huh.
so your Northeastern Huskies will have to get going, but I think they're going to beat BC. I think Northeastern's going to the finals.
Me too.
Okay. Do we
Yeah,
have
we have
any
Northeastern
anything
fans.
else I'm
Yes.
sorry, what, Mark?
Didn't realize we had so many Northeastern fans.
I know.
Yes, yes.
Do we have anything else that anyone needs us to discuss tonight?
What's
No.
more important than the bean plot?
Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
I make a
adjourn.
motion.
And second?
I was waiting for
I need
John.
dinner.
Second,
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll need to take any discussion.
No.
Let me take the vote once more.
I
Joan,
know, Big.
Yes.
Karen Fortino,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
yes.
Sandy Schaefer,
Yes.
me, Marilyn Shapley, yes, Debbie Small, not here, and Nancy Zimlek.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 8:40, and thank
Yay.
you, everyone. I think we
Thank you,
made good progress
everyone.
tonight.
Thank
Thank you. Good to
Bye.
see
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.